Last Flag Flying is a new film from director Richard Linklater, and it stars Steve Carell, Laurence Fishburne and Bryan Cranston. And the film is basically about these three former Vietnam War buddies who are reunited through an event that involves them getting together to help Steve Carell's character. And going into this film, I really didn't know anything about it other than that it starred Steve Carell, Laurence Fishburne, Bryan Cranston, and it was directed by Richard Linklater. And for me, that was enough to get me excited because I'm a big fan of Richard Linklater. Boyhood, that he did a few years ago, I thought was absolutely amazing. And I think Boyhood is one of the best films this century. I think it is that good. I absolutely love that film. And so you tell me a film is coming out directed by Richard Linklater with that kind of cast. That alone gets me really excited. But going into this film, there wasn't really many reactions and reviews from people that had seen it when I saw this film like a month ago at the London Film Festival. Not many people had seen it by that point, so I didn't really know what to expect. I was a little bit kind of cautiously optimistic. I was like, I wanted it to be good, I was really looking forward to it, but at the same time I was preparing myself for it being not that great. But coming out, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really fantastic. Like, getting into positives, obviously the best thing about this film were the performances. All three of the lead actors in this film were great. Steve Carell, Bryan Cranston, Laurence Fishburne, they were fantastic. They really carried this film and they really helped to elevate the film as well, because I really enjoyed the movie. I really enjoyed what Richard Linklater did with this film, but it was a film that was really elevated by the performances from the cast, and all three of those guys were absolutely fantastic. Steve Carell was in this film in more of a kind of a sombre, more kind of quieter, more understated, dramatic performance, but he did a really great job. We used to kind of wacky, zany, kind of over the top, kind of crazy, silly Steve Carell, but the past few years he's been kind of transitioning into more dramatic films. We saw what he did with Foxcatcher, for example. Here he was really great. Like I said, it was very understated, very sombre, very quiet, and it was really weird actually seeing Steve Carell being the quieter, more understated, dramatic one, where someone like Bryan Cranston is the more flamboyant, over-the-top, comedic one. But I thought he did a really great job. And obviously, speaking of Bryan Cranston, he was a real scene stealer in this movie, and as great as both Steve Carell and Laurence Fishburne were, I think this might have been like Bryan Cranston's movie. He really kind of stole every scene he was in, and he was essentially the comedic relief in this movie. And it was really great seeing more Bryan Cranston's comedic side, because obviously we're really used to seeing him in more serious, dramatic stuff like Breaking Bad and that, but seeing him in this film was really great because he was very funny, you know, and he really brought the humour to this film, and I really liked his character. And of course Laurence Fishburne, he was great as always, a very kind of different kind of role for him as well, but he really sold it. And one of the best things about this film were the performances, obviously, but also the chemistry and the relationships and the interactions between these three guys, because that's what's really at the heart of this film. There's not really a whole lot going on in this movie. You know, story-wise, they have to get together to try and do this one thing, but really the movie is just about these three guys and following these three guys and the trials and tribulations of, you know, stuff they've experienced in the past, and then attempting to reconnect with one another, trying to rekindle that friendship with one another. And even though that's basically just what the film was about, it really worked. And okay, maybe the story did drag at times because it essentially was just that, you know, spread across this film, but it worked for me and I really enjoyed it because of the performances from the cast, because those three guys were so great and you were consistently invested and engaged and entertained with those guys. You could just watch a film for like hours and hours with just following those guys, you know, and them talking to one another. And large chunks of this film is just following these three guys, following them walking around, talking to one another, them stuck in certain kind of situations, predicaments, them arguing with one another, them kind of like bonding with one another. And for me it really worked because it never got boring, I never lost interest. And one of the things I really loved about this film was that it touched on so many different kind of themes and issues. You know, it was about grief, it was about loss, it was about war, it was about faith, it was about friendship. It touched on so many different themes, and for me it really worked because we're seeing these three guys now like 20, 30 years on, and they're all in very different places in their life, and obviously Steve Carell's character really wants to bring them back together and he really wants them to become reunited with one another. And it was really great seeing them come back together. Some of them have moved on, some of them haven't, and just seeing them kind of trying to get along and rekindling their friendship with one another. And that's what made this film so great. And it also touched, as I said, on these many different things like grief with Steve Carell's character, you know, a loss that he suffered, you know, he's trying to deal with that. And then we have them reflecting on their past experiences in the Vietnam War. It's very much about war, this movie. We don't see war, we're not at war, but it is very much about war, and that it's talking about war, and it's talking about, you know, America, and it's talking about all these different kind of things. And even though these characters are very kind of disillusioned and almost kind of traumatized by what they've been through, they kind of almost miss it as well, especially Sal, Bryan Cranston's character. He really missed the old days and he hasn't really moved on, but at the same time he's kind of really frustrated with the government and with his country, and so he's proud of his country and he's proud to stand up for what's right and what he believes, but at the same time he's not going to let them just push him around any longer. And his character was really great, and you could really get behind him in so many moments through this film. There's some great moments between Bryan Cranston and the three of them, really, with this Colonel character, you know, who's got this like stiff upper lip, and they just like won't take any shit from him. And it was just really great seeing a film that dealt with those kind of themes, but in a very natural, real, authentic way. And that's what's so great about Richard Linklater and what he brings to his films, regardless of what it is, whether it's something like this, whether it's Boyhood, whether it's School of Rock, you know, he always tackles his films in a very kind of real and authentic way, to the point where you're watching them and you're thinking, if it was any other director, this probably wouldn't have worked anywhere near as well, but because it's Richard Linklater, he brings that signature kind of warmth and humour to everything he does, and it feels very kind of real and natural and authentic. Like, you're watching this and it doesn't feel fake, it doesn't feel overly dramatised, it feels very real, and it feels very personal as well, because when I'm thinking about this movie and thinking about certain themes and it's dealing with, it could have been very kind of really overly political in your face, and it wasn't. It dealt with very kind of real kind of political themes and issues on a wide spectrum of many different themes, but in a way that felt very real and natural to these characters. It was very personal. It was a very kind of personal, emotional film, especially towards the end, with something that happens with Steve Carell's character and the other two guys coming there, stepping up. It actually got surprisingly emotional, and that's what was so great about this film, is that, yes, it was dealing with all these different themes. It was dealing with war, it was dealing with friendship, it was dealing with faith, it was dealing with grief, loss, all these really big kind of universal themes that we can all relate to, but it was exploring them through the spectrum of these characters, these very kind of real characters and the experiences that they've been on and the relationships that they have with one another. Yes, there wasn't a whole lot going on story-wise. It was basically just following these three guys. They're trying to sort this one thing out, really. But because those three were so great and because you were so invested with those characters, I never lost interest, I never got bored, and I thought it was a thoroughly entertaining and enjoyable film that was very kind of deeply personal and emotional, whilst at the same time dealing with all these kind of very big, important, universal themes in a way that I think really worked. It was very real, authentic and uplifting, a very kind of poignant portrait of grief, of war and of friendship. I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, the story did drag at times because it's just dealing with this one thing, really, of these three guys rekindling their friendship spread across this feature-length film. But other than that, I thought this was a really great film. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to give Last Flag Flying 4 stars. And there we have it. That's my review of Last Flag Flying. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. And if you missed my last film review, be sure to go ahead and click over here to catch up on my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on another of my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.